Greetings YouTube and welcome to today's video in which I attempt to give you some solutions to Map 5 Alliance Quest, particularly biggest complaint after the first round. It is over. We have seen the Sentinels and I never know what to believe because I go to forums and I see it almost reminds me of politics where you see both sides of the spectrum. On one hand, I saw some people saying that the complaint about Sentinels was overblown and completely far-fetched and a dramatization of the truth. And then on the other side, I've seen posts of people saying, man, I'm in a top 50 alliance and some of my friends have called it quits because they say that this Sentinel change is the last straw and Kabam is too shady and they're done with the game. Now, maybe both are true, maybe both are not. I saw one guy comment a couple days ago on my premium disappointment opening that they opened 3 4-star premiums in 3 premiums. So 3 4-stars and 3 PHCs. Statistically, that should be impossible, but who knows? Maybe they're right. There was no photo evidence, but you never know. But my point is, I still think, for my 2 cents of what it's worth, that this is the reason why I hate Sentinels in Marvel Contest of Champions at this moment. If the season had ended, and then they made this announcement that with the new season of Alliance Quest, the Sentinels would be replacing symbioids, I would have zero problems with it, especially if the rewards also increased. But if you're thinking of an analogy, think about a basketball game in which you have been playing an opponent for 3 quarters, and maybe you're up by 15 points. And so the coach calls a timeout on the other team, stops the game, tells his players to leave the court, and then substitutes new players that were not even on his original roster into the game for the 4th quarter that are better than the players he had playing in the game just so they have a better chance of beating you. In that instance, everybody would be saying this is shady and this should not be legal because you have to finish the game with the players that you started with. And ethically, that's why this is such a shady deal. It's not that the Sentinels are impossible to defeat. It's that they changed the nature of the game in mid-season and didn't compensate the player for the additional changes. Any company that did that, and any other sport that did that, there would be ramifications. But because Kabam controls the game, they get to set the terms of the agreement. That's my 2 cents. But the point of this video is not to rant about Kabam. It's to talk about the #1 issue that I got complaints with on my channel and that I saw in forums, and that specifically is the Skill Sentinel. Why? I call them the Agent Venom on steroids because they already are bleed and poison immune, and now they've got this Purify effect that allows them to shrug off debuffs while gaining analysis charges. And so they're a lot harder to defeat, and if you don't play very well, they can wreck you quickly. So for this discussion, I'm actually bringing the God tier champs back into the fold, which was not the case in the first 2 videos I did on Sentinels, because I want to give you all options. And I have gone to multiple groups that I trust to say, hey, what characters are you bringing in to tackle these Skill Sentinels? I've gone on forums. I have made a comprehensive list for your benefit. So the first champion that everybody talks about bringing is Starkey. Now, obviously, that's because of the evade mechanic, and also he is such a heavy hitter, especially if you've got Blade and you start with those 3 poise charges at the beginning of the fight. You're looking at doing some heavy damage, and every time you evade, you're just upping a poise charge. We know that the biggest issue against Sentinels is not that they're not easy to evade or that you can't defeat them. It's the time element, especially on the last Day 4 and Day 5s of Alliance Quest. If you're in one of those top alliances, the prestige is high enough to where it could actually take you a timeout to beat them if you do not bring the right champions in. And that's really another element to these videos. It's not that Sentinels are impossible to beat. It's that it takes longer, and so you just have to be a better fighter. And I realize there's some people out there that are like, that's why I love fighting Sentinels. I want the challenge. And you know what? Good for you. That's awesome. But there's a lot of people out there, too, that are ticked off because they're having to use more items because they're just not as good a player as you, I guess. I don't know. All right, the second I do not have as a 4 or 5 star, so I'm just going to have to talk about him, and that's Medusa. Medusa is still the MVP, but I have been told, and I'd love for you to comment below and let me know if you are a Medusa player and you've seen this, that for some reason against the Skill Sentinel, the armor is not as strong or the armor break is not as strong, and they're seeing a more decrease in health against the Skill Sentinel, which is shady as hell. And I'm not sure if that's true, but I've seen that multiple times, and I would love for somebody to comment on my channel and actually verify that information. Now let's talk quickly about the girl I'm way too obsessed with, but it's just because I've been on Team Quake since the beginning, and that is Quake herself. Now, even though it is true that you can shrug off so many debuffs, you can still use Quake against a skill Sentinel despite the class disadvantage with the Aftershocks. And that is something that I'm so thankful the game did not rig, because that would be another instance of shadiness. Now, I want to specifically talk about power drain champions. Yes, even though buffs can be shrugged off, Magic's Special 2 still can drain the power, and that is the point. They may not lock the power, but they can at least drain it, and so Magic is still a good option. Power drain champs also include another favorite God tier champ that I've seen a lot of people comment that they've been playing this game for over 2 years and still don't have. Thankfully, I do, and that's the OG pre-buff MVP of 12.0, Scarlet Witch. Now, besides that, a couple of options that are interesting. These are demigod tier options. I told you I would have multiple options in this video. One is Rogue. Of course, she has the power drain on her Special 2. And then an option that one person commented that they swear by, and I didn't even think of it, but you know what? That's because the community is awesome and fills in the gaps, and there are a lot of gaps of knowledge in my brain, I tell you that. Winter Soldier. Power Drain on Winter Soldier can be very effective, and yes, you can't make the opponent bleed, but you can still use Winter Soldier to wreck skill Sentinels. Now you have another demigod champ that everybody loves, and I really do think this is one of those champs that if you want to say is God tier low end, I wouldn't argue with it. That's Angela. Angela wrecks so much content. She hits like a truck, just like Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel, but with the added bonus of regeneration. And yes, she is not poison immune, but she still can get a lot done. And then, of course, you have the other God tier champs, everybody's favorite Star-Lord, Dr. Voodoo, and Iceman. Now, Voodoo is interesting because even though you cannot make the opponent have poison, the power burn still works. Also, with Iceman, frostbite charges aren't considered debuffs. So that is a comprehensive list of just some champs to take against skill Sentinels. Still think the skill Sentinel is shady as hell, and really am not for the ethics involving the switch at the end of this season. But it is what it is. Kabam has made their move. They are looking to up the difficulty, and hopefully it is not true that you are quitting the game because of the Sentinels, because I do think that is a bit of an overreaction. But at the same time, I think it's fair to admit for most players that this is far more difficult than the symbioids. Personally, I always felt like symbioids were like a free fight. Just a chance to clear a node in map 5 and not have to stress about losing health. Now the Sentinels can easily be the hardest fight of the map, especially if you aren't good at dodging that Special 2. So thanks for watching. I hope this video was useful for you. If you'd like to see a tutorial on something else, or if you'd like me to investigate another issue in the game, please comment below and let me know, because I'm always looking to serve you, the community, with my voice and looking to gather data, because I'm a huge freaking nerd who loves to gather data. Have a great week, YouTube. Again, thanks for watching, and good luck in the next week of Alliance Quest.